Right, that was kind of a long bunch of stuff that's been going on. I tried to cut it down as best I could. Were there any questions or comments or anything?
Well, on a peripherally related note, I do have my J-Link connected to your LoRa board.
So have you been sending LoRa packets yet?
No, because I can't actually build MicroPython to the LoRa board.
Oh, why not?
Damien's pull request for it, way back when, doesn't include the STM32 lib changes to actually bring in the WL frameworks for STM32 lib. And I tried doing that right then, and it comes up with a huge stack of compile failures within all the STM32 lib defines, and there's a whole heap of stuff broken / missing.
Okay.
Different version of STM32 lib, maybe. Not sure.
Right.
It's not happy. But I presume Damien must have had a copy of that or update to STM32 lib if he ever had that pull request built, which it looks like he did.
Yeah, he told me that he had to fork that.
Well, STM32 lib's now been forked into MicroPython, yeah. But even that pull request didn't include a submodule pin change. So I'd say he just forgot to push it.
Okay.
It's a bit rude talking about that when he's not here. I'll have to ping him separately to see if he's got a copy of that he could just push, or if it's gone, if he knows where he might have got it from.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so I'm just walking through the comments now. Mike, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, there's the WeMOS I meant to highlight as well. They've got an ESP32S2 board out, which looks nice.
I ordered one.
Yeah, I think
I can get MicroPython working on it. Should be pretty straightforward.
It should be okay. Watch is $80. Thanks, Peter.
What's happening with PWM? I waited till Damien was gone before I asked.
You have to ask Damien about that.
Okay.
Sion's referring to the fact that we still don't have great support for PWM on ESP32 because Damien slightly redesigned how PWM should work in the machine module. But yeah, Damien's got that in his that's his bag.
2022. No worries.
I reckon if someone just took care of his kids for a couple of days, you get that stuff done in no time. Hey, Lachlan, how's the Propeller 2 going?
Yeah, good. Yeah, lots happening in the background. We still haven't, like MicroPython, the latest compile for Propeller 2 is back on 1.13 or something. We'll catch up at some point. We're basically getting the hardware side together. We're sort of doing an industrial MicroPython-based controller, I guess. Something somewhere sits between a PLC and a normal sort of electronics stack, I guess, modules. So yeah, going well. Like it's converging, and yeah, we're coupling up the Propeller 2 with the SparkFun MicroMod boards. These little, they're not here when I need them, but little tiny stamp size, like 25mm squared boards. There's about 7 different processors supported, so that basically means we can have both the Propeller 2 and an RP2040 or a Teensy or a ESP32. There's a Nordic one, Artemis, Kinetics or Kinetis one. Yeah, so there's about 7 different processors, and then we've got a couple of little modules we've made ourselves which go into that ecosystem. So yeah, but targeting sort of more industrial kind of uses.
Yeah, right. At the risk of having to drop back to refreshing the screen again. Where is the bloody thing? So let's do that again. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it looks close enough. So if, I was going to highlight this, but I hadn't. I forgot basically. Micromods are, as Lachlan was saying, it's sort of a modular interface to doing some micro-based solutions. So you've got a number of carrier boards, which are all based around the what's that interface called? Can't remember.
M2.
M2. Sorry, an M2 physical connector. It's not an M2. Like M2 is used for other things. This is a custom M2 definition with a number of carrier boards and a number of processor boards. So you can just choose your appropriate processor and choose the appropriate carrier board depending on what you're trying to do. And so like they've got the ATP was all the pins. That's what ATP stands for. It just breaks out a whole bunch of stuff that comes out over the M2. Display ones, data logging, etc., etc. And as mentioned, there's quite a few of the processor boards as well. So it's quite a flexible and neat system, and not super expensive. Actually, I can't remember all the costs, but I was sort of surprised.
Yeah, the plug-in modules are sort of, I guess, about $12 to $20 and the base boards are about $10 to $20 roughly.
Yeah, except I think there's a couple that are a bit more expensive. The display ones, 50 or 60 or something.
Yeah, display gets a bit more expensive, but most of those like pin breakout kind of ones and those smaller ones are reasonably priced. But
$20 for a full breakout board is not terrible.
yeah, been struggling to find like process. You know, you can get standardized kind of modules and sensors and stuff like that, but trying to find standards where they've got different processors all in the same form factor it's been a bit of a challenge.
Wow.
Unless you go for Arduino, but Arduino's too big. You know, you want something smaller. So this is as close as we've found so far, and the ones which they don't have, we just sort of create ourselves.
Right. Cool. Hey, can you guys see me in the bottom corner now? No?
No, we've got a pulsating M when you talk.
Okay, good. Jitsi really isn't quite as stable as we'd like, is it? Sorry, I'll refresh one more time.
So what about other people? What else is going on?
Well, yeah, I can see you again, Matt.
To answer, sorry, Lachlan, just to answer AJ's question, the M5 core with the e-ink, it is powered over USB, yeah, and it's got a small battery in there as well. I can't remember how big it was, but yeah, and apparently Xiao is spelled Xiao. Xiao, is that right, Mike?
Shao, like show an owl.
Xiao.
Shao.
Xiao. Okay. Cool. Neat cheap boards. Trying to go to the news I've got.
Well, I finally roped into playing with the WB55, the STM Bluetooth module. So they have the nuclear boards that come relatively good price. You get both the main nuclear board and a dongle that goes with it. But with plenty of help from Jim, now got firmware for the dongle, which will turn it into a USB UART, like USB serial Bluetooth HCI dongle that works nicely with the Unix MicroPython port. So you can now run MicroPython on Linux, but with working Bluetooth, thanks to one of these dongles. So that's pretty fun. If you ever want to do Bluetooth work, you can design it all from your desktop and run it on your desktop MicroPython before, once it's all working perfectly, then you can just flash it to your embedded board and have it still work perfectly, which is pretty awesome for fast turnaround.
Yeah, it's a really cool development environment. So there are a few other boards supported, right? There's in that mode. There's the Nordic.
Yeah, so
52 HO.
I previously had firmware for the little Nordic dongles, but yeah, the firmware for this is just running a build of like the Zephyr C environment and their Bluetooth stack. They had an example already for HCI over UART, and just sort of wired that into their USB serial plug and merged their two projects together. So yeah, now can use either the Nordic dongle or the STM dongle. But now the STM dongle is running MicroPython, so not that that really adds much when you're just trying to proxy USB serial to the HCI Bluetooth commands. But keeps it in the family.
Nice.
Horrible things to program though. They are just horrible.
Yeah.
Trying to get there's so many layers to try and get all the RF core firmware onto it, and there's so many times it just wasn't working. The RF core firmware was loaded. I'd reloaded and it says it's loaded and it says the RF core stack's running, but MicroPython couldn't talk to it. And eventually, when I downgraded the RF core to an older version, it started working. Then upgrade back to the one I just had on it, and it was still working.
Yep.
So,
Fun. Yeah, I've had to go through that process a few times. Just to clarify there, MicroPython's been running on the WB55 Nucleo and the dongle for quite a while. But the part that's new here is to use it as a HCI proxy for the Unix port. So it's a different kind of thing. But yeah, that's super cool.
I'm hoping soon to add the Bluetooth support to the Windows 32 port too, because that would be handy. Yeah, just run MicroPython on Windows and have Bluetooth.
Would it though? No, I'm kidding. It would, I'm sure. But, yeah. I've actually got my eye on the STM32 or ST releasing the U5 series of their processors. This is like the ultra low power stuff, and it's awfully impressive what the numbers they're claiming. Because their current low processor devices are actually pretty damn good anyway. But yeah, I've been looking at the data sheets for that. They've just released the API for it, and the Nucleo board should be, well, they've announced the Nucleo board, but I can't see anyone that's got it stocked yet. But yeah, that's quite interesting to me. They've actually got a whole blob of hardware that's off to the side that you can program to do read from a sensor over I2C and take that and then use DMA to stick that into memory. And that all happens with the micro completely shut down. So it's pretty neat. Pretty neat stuff. I should talk about that next time. What else? Sion's still digging away like holiday.
I tried playing with STM's little ST-Link V3.
Yep.
So this is the $14 ST programmer. It has the same chip on it as the Pieboard D, as in the big chip. The chip itself is normally $14. You can buy it all preloaded on a nice board with USB and debugging firmware and all the rest. It's an F7 chip. It's a huge overkill for a debugger. I was like, well, that's a cheap board to get an F7 chip to put MicroPython on. Turns out ST, and even though they sell this as a module for embedding into things, almost like, and it's got the full sort of tassellated connections down the side, like all the pins are broken out, but they've gone out of their way to lock down the chip a lot. They've already blown the fuses on it, so the SWD port's being permanently disabled, and they make it very, very hard to get other firmware onto, which is all very disappointing. I tried some other reverse engineer guy figured out a way to hack his own bootloader onto it on top of STM's ST-Link bootloader, so you can't get to the built-in DFU anymore. They've got even weird stuff, even though you can get to the boot 0 pin that would normally jump into the DFU bootloader, they've changed the option byte so that takes them to their own ST-Link bootloader instead. So this other guy's managed to hot load his own bootloader on top of that and to try and get firmware onto it. But yeah, I tried rebuilding MicroPython that would suit his bootloader and all the new hex offsets, and I flashed it and nothing happened. So it just didn't run.
Yeah.
So
Seems like it's going to be in the too hard basket to make that useful. Yeah.
yeah, I think by the time you've got to use literally something like it's a fairly nasty sort of hacked scripts that build on like a basically monkey packs the Java jars that ST deliver as part of their ST Link upgrade tools. You've got to use all of this hacked stuff to try and get a build of anything else onto it. It might be cheap, but it's, yeah, I wouldn't really be recommending that to new users.
No, that's a shame.
It's a shame.
Although it's probably
This
good
is,
for Damien.
well, yeah. But this is also, I've also failed to connect to your LoRa board with this, using it as the official debugger that they deliver it as. Because in their infinite wisdom, they've used what looks like the standard 10-pin debug header, except they use a 14-pin header instead, so that they can slap a UART on one end, which would sound really handy, but it means that a standard 10-pin
Can't be pushed on.
can't be plugged into it.
Yeah,
And their cable they deliver is this wide cable that won't fit in the standard 10-pin box header. So I sort of had to hack connectors, break them to be able to shove the cable in to wire it up to this LoRa board. And STQ program, it just can't see a LoRa board. The same breakout wires going to a J-Link work fine, but to this board, no, can't see it. Then this can't see a standard F11 board either, so either I've killed it somehow,
Possible.
I don't know.
Yeah.
ST Link still talks to it and upgrades it just fine.
Yeah.
But no, it won't work as a debugger anymore, even though it's what it's sold as.
Interesting.
But not very handy.
No. Cool.
And I've got two of them. Oh, well.
Mike, I've got the Itsy Bitsy RP2040, which we'll need to get I think we still need to package the NeoPixel on it. So I don't think it's got NeoPixel support out of the box. So that'd be a cool thing to add for that board.
I was waiting for Jimmo to finish his refactor.
Yep, good idea. Although no, it still makes sense. Yeah, and then we'll be able to use the PIO to provide the interface that he expects. Yeah, cool. I like it. What else have we got lying around here?
I've been going through my old projects and I found one from 2018 that I've got to finish.
Oh.
This little guy. It's my old CC2500 radio.
All right.
So dusting off that driver and making it work with all the modern stuff. I've got a bunch of these IKEA buttons. They control like kitchen lights and bedroom lights. That's all getting switched over to the trad-free Zigbee based stuff. This is just plain old RF. So
right.
what are these buttons that I can now use for things?
Nice. Cool. You could use it with one of my brand spanking new receiver things. Yeah.
Oh, and the good part about it is it's this one's 2.4 gigahertz, but it has a little brother which has almost identical driver, and that runs on 433 megahertz.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, write the code once and use it twice.
Sounds great. That's what Java promised years ago, right? I think I'm running out of news to share now. Been working on a bunch of stuff in MicroPython at work, which has been fun. Almost too many projects there, actually. But that's.
So does everyone here use MicroPython at work, or is it more of a hobby?
I think those of us that are at PI, which we're probably about a quarter of the group here for a while there tonight. PI's invested heavily into MicroPython. It's kind of sucking in a whole bunch of the MicroPython resources in Melbourne, it seems. Apart from that, I don't know of many other companies that are using it professionally, but I'd love to hear more. I guess Sion's kind of using it.
I wouldn't call myself professional though.
No, I'd never make that mistake.
I'd like to use it more PWM, but can't. So, you know.
Yeah.
Kind of stalled.
Actually, Peter Boyne, who was on earlier, he also uses MicroPython professionally, but yeah, don't know who else. What about you, Mike? Are you using it just as a hobby thing, or?
For me, yeah, it's just hobby.
Yeah.
I write in Ruby for work.
All right.
And yeah, this is just a way to learn another programming language. Started in the deep end and thought, hey, Python sounds interesting, and
nice.
just went from there.
What are you doing in Ruby? What sort of domain is it?
It's web development.
Yeah. Cool. Rails.
One day switch to Python.
Good. It's good. It's fun writing Python day to day. I did C++ for many years, and Python, especially in the embedded space, is it's kind of a joy. Once you drop back into C++, you realize how arduous programming can be. And I got a lot of respect for C++. You can do a lot of things with it, but geez, you can get a lot of things done quickly with MicroPython. Yeah. All right. Well, unless there's someone else wants to share something or have questions or want to talk about anything, we should probably wrap it up. It's a bit tricky with the online meetings. Like you can't sort of join in with like have a look at this project and whatever. But
Where's the pizza?
Yeah, pizza. Actually, food will be very necessary soon. Stomach's gurgling. All right. Well, I'll list of libs. URL to the list of libs. You mean the standard library coverage, AJ? Yep. I'll post it in the chat. It's there. So if you've got I believe you need a wiki account, which is free to get the MicroPython wiki, and then you can just edit it. I'm not planning on updating those scripts anymore, so I just want to see some markup on this page now.
Do you know anything about the plan to move the forum across to Discourse?
I know that there is a plan to move the forum to Discourse. Someone was engaged to have a look at migrating the data across, and I think that all fell through when the COVID stuff hit. They were expecting to meet them in person. Oh yeah, we'll meet next week after this COVID thing sorted out, and that was 18 months ago now. So,
with Chimo just as the first lockdown happened.
Yeah.
Like, let's meet up every month, and one.
Yeah. Yes, AJ, I haven't linked it anywhere yet. Sorry, guys, on the chat window, AJ's mentioning the standard library coverage is not. It's not easy to find. I need to publish that somehow. And Damien was talking about putting it somewhere prominent as well. I guess I was still when we were working on this, I wasn't sure if it was the right way to go, and to put it into the wiki page, or whether to have a database or a custom front end or whatever. But yeah, the wiki seems a good place to go, and means that everyone can edit it. So seemed like it was okay. Was talking about COVID, and that was so. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of stalled for now, Mike. But perhaps we'll raise it again and see if it gets any further. Are you for or against that move?
On the fence.
Yeah. Okay.
I know it has some new features and it's got a nicer design, but it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah. I think the forum's a bit of an impediment for people joining in, though, like for newcomers to it. It's pretty clunky and old. And I mean, I guess we should also have the discussion at some point with the Slack channel, whether we move to Discord or we try Discord, or yeah, there's sort of pros and cons there. Yeah. the main pro is that we would actually be able to get, we wouldn't run out of our history. So if you look at Slack, going to some of the old, like it only keeps the last 10,000 messages or something. And so some of the things that are in discussion are worthwhile keeping, not many. Most things end up turning into pull requests or issues. But yeah, in some cases the discussion is important. We've also got to consolidate the wikis much better too. It's a bit of a mess there. On GitHub there's a whole bunch of stuff still left documented in the wiki. It's locked, it's read only, but there's some actually misleading information there. So that's got to be tidied up. Jimo's made a start, but there's a lot of work to do there. Yeah. What else? What have I forgotten? I'm really happy to see Damien and Jim tackling the pull requests. It was getting a little bit out of control, but they've been chugging away on. I call it Tidy Up Tuesday. On Tuesdays they get together and try to tackle as many PRs as they can. So it's always kind of exciting Tuesday night or Wednesday morning having a look. Oh, that one's closed. Oh, that one's been open forever. So yeah, it's cool to see.
Sometimes I even get around to closing some of my old ones.
Amazing. What's the latest thing you've managed to get in?
That's a good question. There's a few to do with Bluetooth recently, although that's been as much AOI BLE as the main Bluetooth side. So it's fairly down in the technical weeds with Bluetooth, but the service changed characteristic is a thing where basically a device can tell your phone or whatever's connected to it that I've changed what I've got. I've changed the services or characteristics in the Bluetooth. Normally a phone caches all them. So if you go and have a firmware upgrade that comes with new features, the phone will try and use the old cached descriptions and things break really badly. So there is this way for a device to flag to the phone that things have changed, you should rescan. Turns out it's surprisingly difficult to implement, which I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly because everything in Bluetooth is difficult, but there was, Nimble's got a little bit of very old sort of hard-coded support for one of the ways of doing it, not the new way of doing it, but it doesn't have any way to know whether things have changed. So you still have to try and keep track yourself of what things used to look like when a phone was paired to you. But so to know whether, oh, I've seen this phone before, I'm paired to it, but it knows what I used to look like, not what I look like now. So I better tell it to update.
Right.
That was pretty fiddly. That's working.
Good.
I finally cleaned up a pull request that adds gzip support too.
Nice.
Which is pretty handy at times. But then I've also seen that I think someone else has done basically a different kind of gzip as a C module or as a dynamic C module. So okay, maybe that's a cleaner way to do it rather than having it built into MicroPython all the time. But oh well, that might be another pull request that stays there forever, never merged.
Yeah. I know there's some PRs open, and there's a push from Jimo. So if you've ever done like when you check out MicroPython, you should not do it recursively. And we should make this clear in the docs. If you do a git clone with all the recursive option, you'll get a massive ton of stuff pulled down, because every submodule for every port will be pulled down. And in particular, Tiny USB, which is used on some ports, contains submodules for every single variant of Tiny USB. So that's, you end up with like almost 2 gig worth of stuff that comes down. If you do just a non-recursive checkout, all of the ports, I'll say all of the ports to keep the discussion simpler, but all of the ports have a make target called submodules, so that when you choose the port you want to use, you go make submodules in the port directory that you want, and then it will just bring down the submodules that are necessary for that port, which is cool. It makes it's a couple hundred meg rather than a couple gig, typically. I was telling you that because there's an effort to make that list of submodules dynamic as well, because depending on what build flags you've got, it will actually change the submodules. And so you mentioned Bluetooth, Andrew. That was the classic example for this feature. If you can compile Bluetooth in or not, and so if you do a make submodules with the appropriate MP requires Bluetooth, it will then go and grab the Nimble library, for example, whereas normally that wouldn't get cloned. That's a very long-winded way of saying that's a useful feature for getting those submodules.
Yeah, I sort of ran into that myself of the MicroPython auto builder I had on GitLab. It was broken recently well, its self-updated thing failed, but once I fixed that, as a way to be able to build quickly, because it builds a couple of hundred different boards worth, it did pull everything down recursively in one go and then sort of snapshot so that it can just reuse that for all the couple of hundred builds.
Yep.
But that snapshot is now too big for the build artifacts in GitLab. It says, nah, you can't cache that much between builds anymore. So it's like, that does make it difficult. I haven't quite figured out how to resolve that, and I'm not sure whether I will.
How big is too big?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know, but it's it comes out. Well, sure, I could cache it once each for each of the different ports, would probably, and then build X however many builds per port off their own individual cached copies, or come up with some other strategy. It's
right.
But now that things are building in not Travis, but GitLab Actions, I don't know whether my auto builder has that much value anyway.
Yeah, still, not everything's built, but
not everything's built on mine either. Now it's not entirely up to date with all the boards. Yeah,
so I've got a personal goal to try to push Damien into using GitLab Actions a little bit more to store the artifacts, because at the moment he's actually building them off. Like, GitLab Actions are used to validate the build, but they're not used for the artifacts that you would find on the download page. That all happens off on a server that Damien's got that runs and builds everything again. And the reason I'm hoping to move away from that is that there's this sort of two-stage process when you add a new board. Mike, I'm sure you've come across this. Like, you add the board definitions, and then there's another file you can modify to ensure that it's built in Damien's world, and then you have to ask Damien to include that in his world. So it's a little bit opaque and a little bit tricky to get. It makes it a little harder to submit those boards. So if we can, if it makes sense that we can build it in GitHub, then I think he'd be open to it. And then it'd be transparent as to how things are built and how they pop out.
And anyone who wants to build a new board can just put in a pull request, and it will be a build of that board ready for them to test, make sure that the build even works.
Yeah, and it means they can test that in their fork as well. So they can fork the thing, test it, and know it's going to work. That's nice. There's also been quite a bit of work done on the NXP port as well, the MimXRT, so it's called. Robert HH has been doing a bunch of stuff there, so it's actually getting to be quite a feature-rich port now, which is great because it's an amazing processor. You can get it in a 600 megahertz variant. It's cheap and super fast. Processor? Yeah, it's the one using the Teensy 4 points. Yeah, Teensy 4. Yeah. Pretty snazzy. Which means we've also got much better Teensy support as well now. So, hey, if someone's got my Teensy, let me know, because I can't seem to find it here. don't think it was on the train. Surely would have been.
So you
on.
haven't got any trains recently, have you?
Yeah, no, I haven't been on the train much. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
don't
a bit
think anyone's got on the train much recently.
I was gonna say it's a bit sad seeing the trains go past. It's so empty. Yeah. Yeah, maybe once we get our vaccination rates up, who knows? Sion, you've been unusually quiet tonight.
Sorry, I'm just yeah, just trying to get stuff done. Just trying to talk myself into not going to bed and leaving all this stuff for tomorrow, because then all tomorrow's stuff gets left for the next day. So I worked out this afternoon. I just finished 6,300 boards.
Over what period of time?
What I've just built over the last 6 and a bit weeks.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm pretty knackered. I have not been doing any coding at all. Very little coding other than my test jig stuff. And yeah, just been building hardware and getting ready for my next lot of boards. Start building those, and yeah. Honestly, nothing else has been happening here.
Yeah.
So.
And how many tiny picos have you made so far, the total?
Tiny picos? Oh,
yeah.
Including nanos.
Sure.
My nanos are 25,000, 26,000, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I stopped counting a while ago. I think feather S2s, I think I'm just about to get to 10,000.
Really? Wow.
They've been really, really popular with Adafruit and stuff. Interesting to see what happens with swarm.space now.
Okay.
Because they just got announced. I don't know whether it's been bought or however it's working, but SpaceX gobbling them up, and they're using my Feather S2 on their platform.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
yeah, they've
I didn't realize they got bought.
They bought like 800 of them or something off Adafruit because I couldn't supply. I had no chips. That was when Espressive lost my reels. For those that don't know, I bought a bunch of reels. Silicon shortage everywhere, right? So with Espressive, you got to go into a queue. So you order what you want. You say, this is what I want. And you pay, and they put you in a queue that's anywhere from 4 weeks to 16 weeks, and you don't know, right? And they don't give you an update. They just suddenly say to you one day, your reel's ready, right? Or your reels are ready. So I got a notification, my reels are ready. And then, which means they normally ship it the next day. Didn't get a notification. And then it was the weekend, and I pinged them on the Monday, where's the notification? I'll get back to you. Wednesday, I'll get back to you. Friday, I'll get back to you. 3 weeks later, I get, yeah, we lost them. So they came in from the manufacturer, from TSMC. They go into their one warehouse in China, and then they get shipped to another warehouse in China where they ship them out to customers. And somewhere between the two warehouses, they've lost a whole bunch of people's reels. So that happened during this time. And so, Swarm, they wanted to buy 2,500 boards off me. And I couldn't supply because I had no chips. And so they ended up buying all of Adafruit stock, all of DigiKey stock of Feather S2s.
Wow.
And then Adafruit got their order in before Swarm did. Anyway, I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens with the SpaceX stuff, because if they're going to continue with the platform.
Feather S2's going to space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or no, the boards aren't going to space. They're for the base station. Stuff there. Yeah, there's no Feather S2s flying around.
Yeah, the Nano's going to space.
Yeah. No, not yet. Anyway. But yeah, that's exciting. So that could completely blow up, or SpaceX will turn around and say, no, we don't want you using that hardware. We want you using something else, and it all gets destroyed. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But
cool.
It's really exciting news. Obviously, I was working with Swarm.space for weeks and months before they released their stuff, and and I could talk about the fact that they were using the Feather S2, and very, very exciting. That was pretty cool.
Also.
But otherwise, yeah, it's just And hardware's pretty boring at the moment, to be honest. Like, as in, there's nothing really new coming out. That STM module, although I spoke to you about, Matt, like, I can't get my hands on anywhere. STM have got a new version of their WB55.
Oh, yeah.
So it's 55U or whatever, and it's got Bluetooth and Zigbee and Thread and this and that. It's got basically everything except for Wi-Fi. And there's only one place in all of the world that have 4 in stock, and they're in Europe, and you can, or in the UK, and you can only buy them if you're in the UK or in Ireland. They won't ship them to anywhere else. So I was really interested to have a play with that because it's really tiny. It's like a module, but it's one of those BGA type footprint modules, and it looks quite small. But they've got no size information anywhere on their website, right? So I'm trying to guess how big it is based on the pads and how many pads there are on the bottom and how, and I'm trying to work it out. And I think I might be able to fit one, maybe on a tiny Pico format, maybe. And that'd be very cool. But otherwise, there's no new hardware. Like, there's nothing exciting coming out. Well, I don't know. For me, anyway. Like,
I'm trying to think what's new and interesting. It's not, apart from the U5 from STM32, there's not really much on my radar.
But that's still like this. I mean, sure, it's low, like ultra low power, but it's still same, right? It's still okay. It's an ARM Cortex, and can't do anything more or less than any other ARM Cortex can do. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing new.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe the Nordic 9 series, cellular. It's kind of neat.
Sure.
If you're into that stuff.
Yeah. I want to move away from radio-based stuff. Certification.
Certification's not fun.
No. I almost pushed a button to get my board certified, for CE certified. Always pushed a button, and now I've got a shortage on a component. And if I have to swap out, it looks like I'm going to have to swap it. And if I swap it, it'll completely, it'll completely change my RF on my boards and my EM on my boards, and I'd have to go through certification again. So I've now pulled the plug until I can find out if I can get parts or not. So there's a 60-week wait.
60.
And I cannot find an equivalent component at the moment. I'm looking everywhere. It's an RF, it's a cap, RF cap. And the cheapest I can find is 97 cents per cap.
What value, Sion?
Sorry?
What value? How many puff?
2.3 picofarad. Like, seriously? Like, the worst number you can pick. Like, you go to any supplier or even any manufacturer, and they all do blah 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 2.2, 2.4 blah blah blah, and it's got to be like really like even 0.05 picofarad tolerance is too wide. Like, I need really. Well, I don't, but I do. It depends. If I don't care about performance and whatever, but I kind of do. So. Yeah, like, I don't know. I either have to go for a bigger package, which means a board redesign. So, which would again make me fail cert, like as in I'd have to redo cert. It's just not worth it. I don't know. So I've been dreaming up all the things I could make that don't have a radio on them. Because then certification becomes much easier. Or not at all. So.
That's good.
Yeah. Turns out you can't do much that's interesting without a radio. Like, really.
Everyone wants Bluetooth these days.
Sure.
Oh, Wi-Fi.
It's crap, but everyone wants it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just about to redesign my, not that I'm ever going to get it finished, but my Reflow Master Pro. I'm actually taking my Nano off, and I'm going to stick a pre-certified, probably either a C3 or a C6 module on it. Because I don't want to go down the road of having to worry about how I'm going to get it certified again. Like, I'm going to start using pre-certified modules, make my boards bigger so I can fit a module on them. and stop doing it myself because, yeah.
Is the C6 available?
No.
Okay.
It's not even in production yet.
That's what I
The
thought.
S3 is not even in production yet. They've now announced the H2. I mean, seriously, it's Espressive are now a company.
H2?
Have you not seen the H2? SP32 H2?
I haven't seen it yet, I don't think. I've been meaning to brush up on all the different chips because it's gotten a bit overwhelming. There's all sorts of stuff.
Right, and they announced them so early.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. Like you still can't even the C3s have only just become sort of available right now, like very constrained. You know, but they announced the C6 like 7 months ago. Yeah.
I'd forgotten what its specs were. Yeah, I remember now. RISC-V and fancy Bluetooth.
Right. Well, the C6 is the same as the C3, but it's got Wi-Fi 6.
Right. Okay.
So lower power, better range, better whatever. But again, it's vaporware right now. So and meanwhile, I can't get more flash, and I'm chewing up all my reserved stuff for my S3 boards for 8 different orders. So yeah, but prices are coming down, which means we might be coming out of the silicon shortage sooner than later.
Maybe.
Like not next week, like sooner meaning early next year, as opposed to late next year.
Yeah.
Prices are starting to come down a bit.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
Yeah.
It will be good. I kind of see the chip shortage as a bit of a it puts MicroPython in a good position in a way because you sort of you don't care too much about the hardware, or as much about the hardware. Like the software is much more portable.
Yeah, there's a lot more chips available, so you get a lot. Like you're not stuck in one particular set of chips.
Yeah, like STM's an obvious example. There are thousands of different variants of those chips, and most of the time, MicroPython doesn't care too much, depending on what features you use.
Right, but none of them are available.
Yeah, that is a problem. When none of them are available, it does make it difficult.
Well, that's not true. LCSC have got them all, and they're like $40 each. Like chips that were with $3 each, now $40 each. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like from that point of view, but from a software point of view, it's great. From a hardware point of view, it's still good.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. All right, folks. I might try and get some food into my belly. Hope you all weren't too bored.
Thanks for organizing that.
No problem. Hope it was useful.
Yeah, thanks for the meetup.